Well, good afternoon, and it's very good to be with you. As Sue said earlier, Barnwood Trust is not a Christian organisation. It's a secular organisation. So just to give you a little bit of background, Barnwood Trust is a charitable foundation based in the county of Gloucestershire, and it exists to benefit people with disabilities and mental health challenges. And our mission we describe as being a catalyst for change. I'll explain a little bit more about that later, but essentially it means we're not seeking to be a service provider directly in the way that sort of Alibari or Livability is, but we're trying to do a range of things that benefit people with disabilities and mental health challenges in the county. Our strapline is building belonging, and that tries to describe the kind of work that we're seeking to do. It's a very old organisation, but our current work sort of started around 10 years ago and arose out of a listening exercise where we sought to redefine the work of the organisation and where we could be most valuable and use our resources most effectively. And what the people we talked to told us were that there were a lot of issues around not necessarily mainstream services, but about having something satisfying and purposeful to do, somewhere good to live in surroundings where they feel comfortable and they feel they belong, of issues around people to spend time with as opposed to loneliness and isolation, and ways of encouraging more positive attitudes to disabilities and tackling the stigma, discrimination and prejudice that they faced in day-to-day life. And so that was where the work on building belonging came from, and also from a deep belief that actually we are all designed, well, I would describe it like that, perhaps my colleagues wouldn't say designed. We all need connection and relationship. It's fundamental to our well-being. And indeed even our physical health. There's a much quoted statement, you may have come across it before, that actually loneliness is more harmful to health than smoking 20 cigarettes a day. I think that just puts it in context, really. And so you may be thinking, okay, so what do we do at a practical level? We try to build belonging through grants. We're fortunate being a charitable foundation, we have our own resources. So we give grants to individuals and organisations, recognising that if people don't have the basic fundamentals of life, then it's very difficult to move on to the other things around social connection. But we try and move beyond that. We have a team of people who we refer to as welcomers, but really it's a role that is trying to say to people who have been grant recipients, can we give you something other than just some money for practical stuff? Can we help you to overcome the barriers you face in connecting with other people? Very often that's through pursuing, or first identifying what it is that people are interested in or passionate about. Sometimes they haven't even had a chance to think about that question or the opportunity to pursue it. So identifying people's strengths and their passions, and then starting from there, which is often a route to enabling people to connect with their community. And community is a word that we leave everyone to define as they want to define it, but other people basically. And so we work also with groups and with local neighbourhoods, communities if you will, doing what we call community building, trying to encourage people to, as communities, to be more welcoming of those on the margins, of those with disabilities and mental health challenges, and enabling those on the margins to feel that they can take part and that they belong. We also try to do influencing work around things like housing provision, community spaces, work that tries to challenge conventional approaches to services and systems to consider a more strengths-based way of working, and that is just a shorthand that we use for saying a way of working that starts with people's strengths and skills and assets and views them as valuable rather than viewing them as under a deficit model as a problem to be fixed. I suppose you would say that actually our whole work in this area of building belonging is based around this concept of mutuality that's been talked about quite a lot so far today, because we believe that also through that we will start to challenge those attitudes and that sense of stigma. Because I think if you know somebody as Jill or Mary, rather than that person with a particular condition or disability, it immediately changes your relationship to them.
Thank you. And what are the challenges? Just a couple.
There's an interesting conundrum here, and I'm interested in how those who've spoken before from Alabari and Livability were reacting to what I'm saying, because I think we're coming from a place of saying, well, actually, services are great, but there are certain things that a service can't provide. You know, it can't really provide friendship. It might provide a service in a friendly and loving way, but it can't really provide. You can't commission a service to provide love and friendship. It's got to be naturally given. So that's one of our challenges, talking to people about that, and also seeing it as not binary. I think people hear our message around that and say, oh, so you're saying services aren't necessary. Or, I think it's interesting, the challenges are about getting the right perspective on the use of money. As I say, we do give grants. We recognise that if people's fundamental needs aren't met, then you can't really pursue the issues of looking at interests or building connections. But that doesn't build belonging on its own. It's what you might call necessary but not sufficient.
Just a question or a challenge or a provocation?
Well, I suppose the first one that I jotted down, what are the implications of thinking that you're the person or agency that's here to fix people's problems? I think it's the default response to think, if you see a need, let's try and fill it and, you know, provide something to meet it. But what does that do? What does that do to the relationship?